class, my name is Jeremiah Dinkle, and today I'm going to give you yet another hard-hitting rundown of a Russian game nobody knows about or will ever play because of my weird niche I seem to have found for myself. First up on the list today in Eurojank, it's time to talk about, let's see here, Stalker? No, Grimbeard recently did a video on that, and his editing is much better. Pathologic? I mean, I could, but H-Bomber really knocked it out of the park, and so did Mandalore. Christ, come on, guys, leave something for the little guys, am I right? See, I'm quirky and self-aware. Can I have views now? No? Oh, okay, fine, then fuck it, I'm gonna talk about things that aren't so obscure then, and see how you like that, you bunch of cowards. So, to kind of sum up what my current idea is here with all this Beyond the Gate stuff, I kind of had a few ideas kicking around in my head about, like, what I should do with my next video in regards to, and, well, I started the scripts and writing processes for 2 different games, but I found I kind of either burnt out on the topics I wanted to cover, or just that the creative process I subject myself to was kicking my ass to a degree I kind of wanted to just get something out, which I have a lot to talk about already planned, but I wanted to do something where I covered a bunch of games all packed together to sort of give my general thoughts or highlight stuff that I wouldn't normally get a chance to talk about. This is pretty much just a spotlight for whatever the hell I want to talk about at the time, which allows me to make good things much quicker and not spend 30 minutes talking about why game good. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's jump right into it, eh? Alright, why not start with probably one of the most high-profile games I will ever talk about on this channel, which will bring out the gamer boys, I am sure. Oh boy. Alright, so this is gonna be fun because it's gonna get all the epic gamer boys all over me. Alright, so I know this stands for evokes all the big dick gamer boy Mountain Dew energy you may think I have, but The Last of Us 2 is, yeah, it's totally fine. There's some really good gameplay up in there, and an amazing attention to detail that is jaw-dropping and stunning at times, as well as the fact that the entire revamp of how the game's combat feels as compared to the first one is, oh boy, it's an improvement. Let me tell you, that first one's pretty clunky actually when you go back and play it. I kind of played it right before this, so it was jarring to say the least. But, you know, compared to the first one, it makes for a pretty amazing and enthralling adventure that is, trying pretty gosh dang hard to be taken seriously, sure, and definitely runs on way too long for what it wants to tell, but I don't know, it's pretty fun. I enjoy it. I think Abby and her whole story is probably more genuinely interesting to me than anything in the first half of the game, but like the fact it takes hours to get there starts to become pretty clear after a while. Granted, I mean, it's like, what, maybe 20 or so hours total, and hey, I play RPGs twice as long all the time, so I shouldn't be complaining, but it starts to weigh on you a bit when the story kind of just keeps going. I think twice I reached a point where I just kind of thought it would end, and then it just didn't. I will say, I think the game maybe should have focused on its story it wanted to tell involving Abby, and less so much on trying to touch up the plot of the last game, because at the end of the day, I feel like overall the game probably could have been more focused if it wasn't so worried about telling every little detail of the characters from the past game to the player. It probably also wouldn't have pissed off as many guys if what happened didn't happen in the first place, because, let's be honest, it was, I wouldn't even say it's necessarily bad or whatever. The big twist of what happens isn't, like, actually that upsetting to me, because I kind of realized that the characters in the first game are also not very good people. Anyway, gameplay is like hella solid, and I gotta admit, I kinda love the feel of it. I know Mr. Truckman doesn't want us to enjoy it and wants us to feel bad for stabbing people in the throat or making their heads explode when we shoot them, but like, you know, give me no other option and I don't know what the fuck you expect me to do. Regardless of anything involved with the story, the combat feels amazing and way more fleshed out than the original, leading it to it feeling very weighty, and the gunplay system feeling incredible in each encounter. It's like, you know, I enjoy the stealth and everything, but I won't lie, when shit hits the fan, I find it super fun. There's this kind of intense rush of gunplay, because everything feels weighty, and you're kind of just struggling to survive with everything you have on hand. It's a really unique feeling that I kind of wish was there maybe a bit more. I kind of wish it opened up and let you kind of do that more. the combat encounters in this game are like pretty wide open generally, so you can often kind of like attack somebody, then disappear into the grass, and that is a really cool feeling, especially when you're taking on a larger group, so that part is neat, but I'm also just a fan of when things go kind of all out. Personally, I think that's the most fun I had with this, and I do kind of very much wish that there was some sort of multiplayer component or something else, just because I do find the gameplay so fascinating and fantastic to play through. But yeah, sadly it is not there. I'm not really sure why all the gamers are upset about this one, because it kind of feels fine. The big main twist isn't even that upsetting or anything, and hell, I liked the first game, so I don't know, bro. Overall, I'd say solid maybe like 8 out of 10. Feels good, but I wish it maybe had a bit more fun in it to break up the gritty shooty bang bangs the game wants to pretend it didn't spend 2,000 hours in crunch perfecting every second of. While we're on it though, instead of saying that the writing is bad or that the use of queer characters is the downfall of AAA gaming, how about we talk about the inhumane hours of crunch that went into this game behind the scenes that the majority of both news outlets and gaming figureheads are desperate to forget about as soon as possible, as Mr. Truckman posts his funny haha gifs with Joel and Ellie on Twitter. The marketing for this game and everything Truckman has done to his team is despicable, and the studio should be held accountable no matter how pretty the game looks. I don't even know what to say with the comparisons to things like Schindler's List and stuff like that. I don't know, man. It's just funny. It's funny to me that people are like, oh, video games are a serious medium. You gotta take these video games seriously. Just, Christ. Read the room, man. Just read the room. All you gotta do is read the room. Alright. Okay. Yeah, here's my like semi sort of obscure one. This one is a pretty long-standing game I've been following ever since I saw, like, I think a GIF or a trailer of it way back in the day that just spoke to me on so many levels because of those, oh god, those visuals, man. Backbone is a jazzy, point-and-click-esque detective game with stunning visuals and great set design. Currently, for some time now, a demo has been out on Steam, and just recently I finally got around to it. And as it's a demo, I can't really say much, but I will say it has a lot of potential, and I genuinely cannot wait to see the next full thing when it comes out into development. The only major flaw as of now I would like to throw its way is that it does feel like it needs voice acting to its speech, because there is an awful lot of text, at the very least something kind of like banjo-esque gibberish that you might call it, or something like that, where it's like a sound effect that matches the tone of the character when they speak. It's a small thing, but for me I found it kind of jarring because, well, there's background music and everything else and other sound effects, there's no dialogue, and there's no kind of like sound or anything when other characters are talking, so you're just kind of reading this quiet text while the world around you is continuing to exist, which can be kind of a jarring experience, at least for me. If you haven't heard of this game, I fully recommend picking up the demo and playing through it. It's only about an hour long, and if you love a good detective story like I do, I think you'll enjoy it as well. Within the demo, you get everything from great music to neat conversations and even a few really neat puzzles. I know personally, I'm excited when this does get a full release, and until then, I hope to see more of it because the cliffhanger ending is really actually quite the choice, and I just hope it pays off in the full game. Overall, I'd say give the demo a try. I mean, it's an hour-long free demo, man, and shit, we have nothing but time right now. But if you want to not, I guess that's cool too, just, you know, this game deserves some love and attention ahead of its release. Everything so far I've seen from it has been pretty on point as all heck, and while there's a few little niggles here and there, I mean, like, just look at this game, man. Shit is pretty as hell and oozes with some good old vibes. My hope is that it actually continues development and gets a full release so that when it actually comes out, I can play it fully, and maybe it will become one of them cult classics a la Night in the Woods, which everyone dug the hell out of. Oh ho ho, yeah boy! So, this was totally unexpected to me, and I think like everyone else that played or loved Superhot at all, up until about a day before release, I don't even remember hearing about a single word of this game, but, you know, whatever, I'm not going to complain about the fact it was given away for free to anybody who had Superhot, but you know, hey, pretty cool. It's a really nice surprise with everything else going on in the world to have kind of just woken up to a full sequel to a game I adore and have it be this amazing and fantastic to play for an experience that was given away to anybody who already owned a Superhot. In fact, I kind of wanted to buy it a second time just because I wanted to give them money for making this because they deserve it after all the work that has been put into this. Right off the bat, Superhot MCD feels like the ultimate goal the team wanted when they first tested out the idea. Looking back on both the original and the VR port, both are showing off an amazing concept but don't quite yet know how to turn it into something kind of full, like a full experience. It's like a demo. MCD changes that and finally feels like it's the perfect Superhot experience to date, with its gameplay having much more depth and variation as it's turned into something of a roguelike, allowing you to pick different modifications as you go through certain levels, one after the other, each modification changing a core aspect of play as you're going through these semi-randomized levels. The level system is also totally different, with each level being randomly selected with a different starting position, different items and weapons, and different enemy locations, allowing for what is essentially an endless mode of gameplay which just feels fantastic. Just as Superhot should, after all. So far, this sequel has given me, and I think pretty much any loyal fan of the original, exactly what we wanted on the first go-around, and then some, making you feel like a badass action hero a la John Wick, and letting you bask in every second of it. It's important to note that there is still a narrative, however, and while I have yet to beat the game or get super far into it, I can say it is interesting, if not vague, to say the least, and if there's one thing I will always make time for, it's more of this gameplay loop regardless of anything else. If you had any doubts, or somehow missed the fact that this game exists or released, which I wouldn't blame you, I cannot recommend it enough, even if you did not play the original. If you owned the original, though, before its release, it's important to also say that you might just already own MCD, so like, hey, nothing is stopping you from having fun but yourself there, buddy. If you don't own it though, for God, please buy it. Please, please, God, buy it. Please support this game because Superhot is and will always be amazing, and God, I hope this isn't the last time we see it. Okay. So I really had no idea what to expect going into this game at all. I don't think I've ever really gone more blind into a title, but like, I don't know, something about it made me want to at least give it a check after I got it in one of the many humble bundles or something like that, I'm sure, along with a bunch of the other games in this pack. At the end of the day, though, I'm glad I did, because for what this game is, it's actually pretty neato, at least what I've played of it so far, and was pretty engaging for the period I did play it. To put it bluntly, this game doesn't have much to it. The game is mostly a strategy survival sim to which you are the captain in an escape pod full of survivors from a space station that must lead your crew to hopefully some form of prosperity. You start off able to grab pretty much everything from the space station and tossing it into the escape pod within 60 seconds, escaping right before your home base explodes with no destination to go and your only objective being survive. I actually think this is pretty neat. You have to basically gather as much supplies and people as you can right away, take everything you can, toss it into your little escape pod there, and then try to survive with what you are able to grab. That is a neat hook. Once you actually begin the survival part of the game, though, shit kind of changes, and instead of the 3D gameplay for the first part where you're running around and collecting stuff, the vast majority of the game is spent looking at your little pod here and making important decisions as captain in order to live long enough to possibly get help or find a civilization that can house you. The choices themselves are based on the character attributes, which depend on the captain you picked and also the people that you have brought with you in your pod, each of which will have a different sort of abilities, which you can then allocate tasks to accordingly and get shit done and hopefully not die in the process. Thing is, pretty quick I realized that while the game is fun and very engaging with quirky writing and a premise that is very interesting, I can't help but feel like maybe there should have been a little bit more to this. There's a distinct lack of music to really back up the rest of the game outside of ambient kinda half there background shit, and like, I don't know, you got a big sci-fi game here, you could do like some wacky synths, a little neat sci-fi themed jams here and there, just to make it feel a bit more lively. It would also really help if this game had voice acting or something, because simply reading text from a screen can get really boring really fast, especially when there's no sort of way to engage you via sound effects or voice acting or anything like that. Overall, I don't want to dog on it too much though. I mean, the team clearly tried, and there's quite a few options to actually do from your little escape pod. You can have people roam out and explore the world you land on. When you do eventually land, you can craft items and all this. You have to manage sanity, health, and hunger. You have all these things that you kind of have to manage, and that does make it interesting and pretty engaging, but for me at least, I guess for me at least, this isn't the type of experience that personally I'm as into as other people might be. Overall, I guess I kind of just wanted a bit more out of it at the end of the day. If you dig the idea of a sci-fi, mostly text-based survival sim, then this could totally be your style. As I said, the writing is pretty fun, and there's some good art there and talent put behind this. It's one of those games that you can just sort of veg out to and relax while playing. It's not exactly too stressful or anything like that. I mean, it's a survival sim, so it's going to be a little bit when you have to manage supplies and all that, but you know what I'm saying. It's a good game, and if you enjoy that type of game, this might be something you would enjoy. For me, it's not personally my cup of tea, but this exists as a way to bring games to maybe your site that you didn't previously know about in the first place. So if it's your jam, good for you. It ain't mine, but that's okay. Okay, so like, fuck, this one came out of nowhere, but lately I got really into the Strider Soft reboot game that came out a few years back, and god damn, this game is wildly good. The combat feels fast-paced, the visuals are fantastic, and the music is popping. All of which mix together to create one of the most enthralling action side-scroller games that I have ever picked up. Given all of that, I'm kind of surprised to not see it brought up more and to not really have ever heard a big deal about it in the time since. Maybe people just missed it, or maybe my circle just doesn't really include the target audience, but, you know, I fuck with it pretty hard. Either way, with a ton of free time on my hands during the world deciding to just end, I finally got a chance to like fully sit down with this game and beat it, and yeah, shit's solid all the way through and fun as hell. Sure, you could say the experience is a bit shallow, but I prefer to look at it as an experience that knows what it wants to do and just doesn't feel the need to fluff it up with hundreds of boring collectibles and side objectives and a bunch of other tat that just prolongs the game. It's the kind of game where it just sort of wholly focuses on its combat and rewarding you for mastering said combat with little else there if that's not your kind of vibe. If you like really fast-paced action and stylish combat, then this is probably a game for you. It's a rather simple one, granted, but it's got the same kind of fun and quirky style that, say, Double Dragon Neon had, where it knows what it is and it embraced the hell out of it. The story is about as dumb as possible, and sure, the writing isn't anything to write home about in general, but like, come on, you're not here for that, and the team knew it, so the focus was instead on the minute-to-minute combat and making you feel as badass as possible in these super well-made, fast-moving Metroidvania levels, getting new power-ups left and right, and learning new moves for combat. Shit's hella neat, and I highly recommend checking it out. Overall, I gotta say I'm like pretty impressed with this one. I mean, I kind of just picked this up on a bit of a whim. I'd heard some, you know, I've heard that it was decent. I've kind of always be interested in it, and I think I got it in like a Humble Bundle or something like that again, as I often get most of these games, and I feel like most people get in their Steam library. And I just kind of eventually decided to install it. I kind of wanted something quick and fast, and something I didn't need to like commit to fully, like say a larger AAA game would necessarily require of you. And honestly, this was one of the better distractions I had. It was a nice, small little game you could play through. You didn't have to focus too much on the story or characters or anything else like that. It wasn't a commitment. It was just fun. And sometimes a game just being fun is what you need, especially after playing a lot of depressing things, or with the outside world being kind of in the state it is. It's nice to just have something that is fun. It reminds me of kind of why I like games in the first place and the experiences that I do enjoy. Having that fun and having that sort of way to disconnect a little bit and just relax is so nice and so stress relieving that it kind of just reminded me through this experience that, oh yeah, this is what it's like to not just kind of always be focused on plot and story and making things gritty and making things hard or ask hard questions or anything like that. It was just fun, and it's okay sometimes to just have things be fun. I cannot understate how much I adore the Kajumbo Man and all his wacky self-aggrandizing writing, in which he will often trail off for like 30 minutes talking to me about the stupidest, most philosophical dumb bullshit ever out of nowhere. If there's one thing that should be clear from me playing Slav games, it's that big old philosophy conversations are kind of a common as fuck trope that you often see a lot in games outside of the Western sphere, many of which are more than happy to get all sorts of political or critical of governments, war, or general society social economic standing. However, nobody really ever do like the Koji do with his insane ramblings about his deep messages, and so Death Stranding comes to me as the antithesis of pretty much this man's entire work life so far. This game is like a fever dream that I cannot escape from, not that I would ever want to, and to be honest, I find it so enthralling I could spend literal hours delivering high-end underwear and old-world movies to just get my likes up from random strangers across the world. Shit hit my brain just right. By now, you've probably heard a basic rundown of Death Stranding, but like, with it just coming to PC now, it's a good time to bring it up again, and just in case you haven't picked it up or you're on the fence about it, I'ma just be honest, shit ain't for everybody, and that's okay. Alright, so like, who is it for, you may ask? Granted, I'm sure people with a much bigger following have already answered this, but like, you know, whatever, it's all good, man. Anyway, so like, the people this game probably will appeal to the most is either people who love and adore Kojima a hell of a lot and are willing to quote-unquote put up with the gameplay because there's a wide amount of quiet time and slow down time where all you do is kind of just spend 30 minutes to an hour doing very long and tough deliveries. The second group of people, though, who would fuck hard with this game include people like me, the type of people who love the hell out of Elite Dangerous and trucking sims for the wonderful and calming experience that is delivering packages and performing repetitive tasks on repeat. At the end of the day, that's what Death Stranding truly is, and I found that most people who really enjoy those type of games tend to really enjoy the loop here. So as odd as it is, Death Stranding is kind of like a big AAA budget delivery simulator with the occasional nonsense conversation that is Kobinma writing some downright confusing and nonsense sounding dialogue that you won't understand until you get well and truly deep into the game at about like 20 hours or so. Well, a lot of people really ain't so into the gameplay. Honestly, I could play this for hours, and well, I have spent hours just doing the standard deliveries in addition to the main story ones, just because I enjoyed the experience in the gameplay loop so much and the cycle of just delivering packages, especially since I can kind of zone out and enjoy the gameplay loop and just put on like a podcast or music or something while I do. It's great. But, well, it's great. It's also kind of a blessing and a curse, because honestly, as much as I love the hell out of this game, there's a lot of shit that could probably also be audio logs and... God, I've never really seen a game that needs like a music player more in it. It strikes me as kind of odd because MGS5 did have both a music player and like an audio log system, and well, that game is... not great. It could totally have been done here and been much more effective than it was there. As it is now, it really do weigh down the game when I gotta spend like 10 or 15 minutes or so in silence just reading emails and interviews that are just so incredibly dry right after every delivery just so I can get the most out of the plot and the experience. It's just, I don't know, man, it feels like something's missing here, and it's probably the least enjoyable part of the game, and I dreaded every time I got these things to the point where I kind of stopped reading them for a large portion of the game just because they did not appeal to me in the goddamn slightest. I'd have loved, for at the very least, for these interviews to just be fully voice acted, but as every single one of the characters in this game probably costs a ton of money, they clearly couldn't afford the extra expense to just have them reading all this Kojima fluff. Again though, gotta state it, but I've spent so many hours in this stupid fucking game, and I've loved every second of it, and it's truly an amazing experience, and if the gameplay clicks with you, then you're gonna like it. And many others also kind of feel the same way, where it just clicks with you or it doesn't, and that's kind of the thing with this one. Either with Death Stranding, you're really gonna like the gameplay and you're really gonna get into it, or you're not. For me, I love it because it's also one of the only times the AAA industry has ever allowed a game that just has a really weird and unique kind of gameplay system that feels so special in it to just exist. Most AAA games, they're all playing very, very similar these days, and this one just stands out, and it's amazing, and it's so unique, and I can see why people, when they saw it, were so crazy about the experience, and I'm happy that I finally got around to playing it. Plus, I gotta say, there is gunplay, and yeah, it can be a bit jank, but like, I don't know, I don't hate it as much as other people do, and some people really disliked it, but I really didn't feel it was bad or anything, though it is a bit easy sometimes outside of like BTs for the first 20 hours or so, but eventually even those aren't really that scary or anything like that. And bandits, they don't mean shit, you know, fuck off bandits, I got guns. At the end of the day, though, this is one of those that you can either fuck with or you don't get it at all, and, you know, that's alright. Just like always, if it ain't your cup of tea, that's okay. Just don't go on calling the game terrible because the gameplay ain't for you. Not everything has to be, and generally there's always something that sets people off on some games. I don't necessarily like turn-based games at all, and big over-the-shoulder strategy games also aren't for me. The ones that are like top-down, those I don't like them. I don't like it. But anyway, most of all, this game has been a fantastic experience playing Death Stranding. I've been meaning to get around to it. It's a long game, but I've enjoyed like literally every second of it. It's fantastic. It's one of the best experiences I have had in so long, and I know that's been kind of stated over and over and over again, but I do mean it. I do genuinely mean it. So I just hope that kind of comes off here, and I hope if you have been kind of on the fence or anything like that, that you pick it up, because it is an experience that is worth playing and experiencing for yourself. Plus, you know, on top of it, this game is also kind of neat when you compare it to something like Last of Us, which at the start of this, I did mention before, it does somewhat try to be anti-violence, though I don't necessarily get that same message that other people got, but regardless, it tries that. It's not necessarily the best at it. Death Stranding, though, has a whole message of anti-violence that's actually pretty fucking good. So, you know, that's I don't know, it's an interesting topic I just thought of, so whatever. You know, sometimes you just find games that sometimes seem like they are almost handcrafted directly for you when you're scouring the webs online. Sometimes you just see something with all the style and vibes that you adore and you just think, man, I gotta get that and play it someday. Sometimes, indeed, it do be that way, as sometimes you get a jalopy. If I had to describe this game simply, imagine any kind of road trip movie, except the road trip was in a busted-ass car that was constantly on the verge of breaking down, and the entire thing was also Slav-themed, and filled with philosophy and engaging conversations. The hook of the game is that you are going on a road trip across the Eastern Bloc with your uncle in a vehicle that is a run-down, constantly breaking jalopy that you have to hope and pray keeps running long enough to reach your destination. Thing is, along the way, there's a lot of moments of self-reflection and general conversations that talk about a wide range of topics like the social economics at play in the time, and the general philosophy along the way, with interesting ideas and worldviews presented, which are just fascinating to witness. Well, sure, you could write off the game as not having much gameplay, and I mean, well, it ain't exactly pretty or anything. The point is more so that it has a heart of gold, and I'm pretty sure it was also made by one guy, so like, hey, pretty damn impressive. There's a certain vibe to this game that I think anybody could like, where it's oddly calming yet at the same time so incredibly thoughtful. I've really been meaning to get around to a full playthrough for ages and kept getting distracted or pulled away towards things, but now, sitting down to play a nice little road trip game in the middle of the pandemic while I'm locked inside, I just kind of fuck with it on a whole nother level, and would love to say give it a play. It's got a lot of love put into it, and it shows. Everything, from the environments you drive through to the busted-ass nature of your car, kinda just feels great. Like, I don't know, homely? It's hard to really explain, but it's kind of one of those games where when playing it you just kind of feel at peace, which, with as anxious as I tend to get at times, has been really helpful through everything going on in the world between riots and pandemics as my home country becomes increasingly terrible to live in. It's been kind of nice to know that with everything else going on, I can always come drive for a little bit and pretend to be elsewhere with my uncle in our beat up car, which is just functional enough to get us to the next town. Just the way I like it. Genuinely, if you're looking for something that's a calming experience, but also a very thoughtful one, I would highly recommend picking up Jalopy. It's just a really good experience and one of the best ones I've had in gaming in a while, and it would just mean the world to me if you also got to experience it. Games like these are kind of why I started this channel in the first place. Those much smaller games that don't really ever get talked about, but are gems nonetheless. And this one I would consider definitely a gem that I've come across and one that I've returned to multiple times despite not always finishing it or anything like that. I just find it a very peaceful and calming experience, and it's also just a fun little road trip game that's very neat, and it has a lot to say. So, if you're looking for that kind of experience, I would say definitely go for it. I think you would enjoy it. I think people should play Jalopy because I think they would enjoy it.